Yeah, I just gotta do this off the cuff. I mean, like, I got too much to do. Okay, so hey YouTube, if you're watching this video, I'm actually doing it live on a stream, no prep. For the most part, the reason I'm creating this video is actually just to support an intern that I'm onboarding right now, in addition to one of my co-founders, which is curious about the brain and how they can start to leverage it. In addition to, of course, just potentially sending this video to a broader amount of people that could be interested in the sorts of things that I've worked on here. So first things first, why this brain repo even exists, this brain repo. So like I originally created it just because I was like AI was becoming such a fundamental part of my development, and it was editing files across my entire system, like my zshrc, which had a bunch of environment variables, a bunch of like hidden configuration behind the scenes when it comes to Codex and Claude and OpenClaw originally. All this jazz was happening in things that were in Git, like untracked directories, like not tracked by Git. And accordingly, the visibility into all these changes were slim to none. They were happening behind the scenes, and it got frustrating because AI is cooked half the time, and I needed to make sure that these changes were proper and actually tracked so that I could understand everything that is happening behind the scenes. And so what I ended up doing is just centralizing everything into one repo via a bunch of Symlinks throughout the system, and that's how it started. And then, nearly within like 12 to 24 hours, I started to think more about this repo as just the central location for really everything in my life that doesn't actually relate to any one specific project per se. It's more about just kind of my brain in general. Like I just what kind of drives my day-to-day usage of various tools and systems and skills, blah 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 blah. And so I started to tack on things like, a vault, which is very, very similar to like an Obsidian style like mind map, and other like CLI commands like text to speech, speech to text, other things that are just like common commands that needed to be run for any particular reason, like authenticating with refreshing authentication tokens, etc., etc. Anyways, lots of stuff that just kind of I actually just created a CLI, and so that I thought was cool. And what else? What else did I do? Oh yes, and then there was another reason why this exists. Well, it's not really why the original repo exists, but what's contained in the repo is really beneficial. Is that of course OpenClaw banned usage of. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat here. It banned usage of Claude subscriptions, and that immediately put it out of the realm of possibility for me because I have a Codex and Claude subscription, like the most expensive ones, like the max ones, like $200, $400, whatever it is, Canadian dollars. And Codex just simply couldn't do it. I honestly hate Codex when it comes to conversational things. For most things, Codex is terrible, except for code itself, which is ironic, I guess. Well, no, I guess not ironic, just very understandable. I mean, Codex still takes the cake when it comes to just pure writing code. In every single way, I think Codex is optimal there, except front-end UI UX. That's where Claude wins. But, so I guess Claude wins in every single category I can feasibly think of, except for UI UX, or sorry, except for writing actual code logic, like back-end logic. That's where Codex wins. So anyways, the way that I was using OpenClaw was to orchestrate like, sort of like iMessage bots and Slack bots, and just sort of kind of like orchestrating like overall flows that I had. And a lot of those flows depended on just the way that Claude operates and Claude's personality. And so when I switched over to Codex and it just simply couldn't do the things that I wanted to, especially not in the speed that I wanted it to be done in, it frustrated the heck out of me. So I figured out ways to move that functionality and replicate that functionality that existed within OpenClaw to Claude. And that functionality somehow, some way, doesn't exist online. So I just built it myself. And I think it's kind of cool, and it's going to continue to evolve. And anyways, this video is going to chat about it slightly, just a little bit. We don't have unlimited time, and I'm already rambling, so we gotta rip through this stuff. So, okay. Oh yeah, sorry. What those problems actually are, just to make it clear. One, the Claude job system only exists in the Claude desktop app for understandable reasons. However, that's frustrating for various reasons. One, you can't even set up like local jobs to be run from the CLI, and two, you can't, like, it's not the jobs aren't actually a configuration driven jobs, so you can't even, like, there's not a job configuration file that you can edit just by like talking to the CLI and getting the CLI to edit a job. You have to go into the desktop app and actually like use the desktop app. And I don't want to use the desktop app. I just want to use my primary system. So that's one. And then the biggest one is channels. So they have an iMessage channel, but that doesn't work for the particular use case that I want. Whenever I have a bot, I want it to be its own entity. And accordingly, with the way I had OpenClaw set up is I have an alternative user called Marvin on my computer. So you can see it here. So yeah, you can see Marvin here in the top right. That's an alternative user which has its own iMessage account and is running the BlueBubble server, which then sends the messages to my current user that's logged in. And then everything is orchestrated through this current user. And so that setup wasn't possible with native Claude. So I had to build a custom Claude BlueBubbles MCP server. And so that's built out. So anyways, yeah, those two things are things that I've solved, and I'll walk through it a little bit on the video here. Okay, so what's in here that can actually be reused? So I think that honestly, the biggest thing that I think can be reused is just the ideology of what I've done, is centralizing everything into just one folder. Even if you don't clone this, I would just highly recommend this in general. Centralizing, even if you don't make it public too, you can just keep it in a Git-tracked private non-push to origin folder. Centralizing all of your system configuration in just one place that is Git-tracked. And then you leverage a client like Git-Kraken or GitHub UI or whatever to just visualize all those changes that are being made on a day-to-day basis. And so what that means is setting up a bunch of Symlinks. So I'm just going to go into the Symlinks configuration here. You can see all my Symlinks configuration right here. So you can see I've Symlinked all of the Claude related stuff, some of the stuff that comes from the actual Claude desktop app itself, a few other things, then also Codex. So kind of everything is Symlinked into here. And then you should see, I'm actually slightly confused now at this point. My zshrc is not in here. Well, what? How on earth is my zshrc not Symlinked? I'm actually going to ask about this. Could you explain to me why my zshrc isn't in my symlinks.conf file? Like, isn't that something that is Symlinked, or am I mistaken? Anyways, okay. So I've Symlinked a bunch of stuff. And so we have the Codex Symlinks and the Claude Symlinks and my environment, my zshrc. Now, another thing that the way that I've organized my zshrc is I actually have just, like, it's as bare bones as possible. But the thing is, I actually am someone that likes to produce reusable scripts and skills and so on and so forth. So skills, that's an AI thing. But for scripts, I wanted that to be directly accessible from my terminal, in all terminals. You're not mistaken. It is Symlinked. What? Am I just, like, unbelievably blind and cooked here? What the? Oh, well then, okay, could you, yeah, go, actually, I want you to audit to make sure that all of the Symlinks are in here. Every single Symlink it should be in this configuration file. At the end of the day, this is meant to be a source of truth. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on. So, where was I? We have everything Symlinked. I would highly recommend this purely just because then you can, any time that any of these change, you'll see it in your diff. You can see all the edits to skills and so on and so forth. And the zshrc. All right, so zshrc, the way that I have it set up is basically I just have one bare bones zshrc file that then actually sources my .m file, as well as basically just a bunch of scripts. So you can see this, this basically just loops through all of these scripts that I have set up, and it just kind of exposes functions. So you can see a bunch of kind of aliases that I have set up here, clipboard helpers that I sometimes use, Codex helpers, which I haven't used in actually a while now. The naming actually isn't very appropriate at the end of the day. Some that just random development helpers. So I'm a huge fan of this, and then also it also sources my brain CLI, which is something that I'm actually moving towards. So the scripts are actually a little bit of an outdated idea or ideology. But you can see all the commands here. And actually, I'll pop into where are we at right now? What could be reused? Oh no, I'm diving into. I've lost my track. So I guess I'm on to this now officially. What here could be reused? I think I touched on that. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But nevertheless, moving on. So systems at HHRC, yeah. I think that generally covers it. Probably not in a very well understood way, but nevertheless. So how you could reuse this is I would honestly recommend, like I do fundamentally believe in the ideology that I'm recommending here as far as centralizing everything via Symlinks. And I do recommend setting up your zshrc where it's super lean and it delegates and sources from other places. So you can see how I source from all these scripts just to keep things organized, as well as I source from an environment variable file as well. And I keep that up to date. And of course, you Git ignore the environment variable file. Oh, another huge benefit of all of this is that if your laptop, I mean, assuming you push to origin, your private GitHub, if your laptop goes in the ditch, you have, like, as a developer, you have everything that you can just spin up a new laptop very, very fast. Actually, that was part of the motivation why I did this. Okay, so system setup. Now, Raycast, I actually have to just take a little pause to set up Raycast because this is more so for the intern that's joining the team. But honestly, anyone that's watching this video should benefit from Raycast. Raycast is fantastic, and honestly, a lot of people use Whisperflow, and I actually don't like Whisperflow for voice to text. I mean, this is my flow. Whoops, pardon. This is my flow for like recording audio, and I click enter, and it shows the thing. I can make edits right on the page here, and then I click Command Enter, and it copies. I can also click Command H, and you can see all my recordings here. And yeah, it's a much better flow than Whisperflow in my opinion. So anyways, that's one benefit of Raycast. But beyond that, it's just Raycast is just a superior Mac finder. Really, that's all it is. I mean, you can look into the documentation of Raycast and see what all the benefits are there. But after you install it, you basically just need to do a few things to get it set up. So first things first is you go into, I believe it's maybe Spotlight. I actually don't know. Yeah, okay, maybe the reset quick keys. I actually don't even know. Let's go just keyboard shortcuts, because I know that it's fundamentally keyboard shortcuts that you need to adjust. So keyboard shortcuts, yes. All right, so you go to keyboard shortcuts and then you go to Spotlight and you turn off these because you just never want them anymore. Screw those. And what you want to do in Raycast, so let's go into Raycast settings, and you go into the general, and then you just assign the Raycast hotkey to what Spotlight used to be. So Command space is my preference, and yeah, that's what I just go with. After you do that, I would recommend that you install, really the only thing I personally go with is, well, the three things that I use Raycast for is clipboard history. So I have an alias to C, and this is just, I haven't changed this just simply because my brain got used to it early on, and I just never figured out, I never bothered to change it. So like my brain is just like automatically, I do Command space, and then I click C, and then I click Enter, and that's the flow that I use to get in my clipboard history, and it's super useful for, I mean, everything. I also have a shortcut for gists. Oh no, I actually removed that, but that's also helpful. Going back into the Raycast settings, the thing that gets me to the point where I can do voice to text is, what is it called? Transcribe? No, it's like whisper. Yeah, whisper dictation. So install this whisper dictation extension, completely free. There's no, I mean, you have to install with the Whisper CLI, but yeah, there's no, it doesn't cost a single dime, and I guess that's really all there is to it. Okay, so yeah, that's really all. I mean, and you can see that I assigned my keyboard shortcuts here. Now, I love keyboard shortcuts. I'm a big advocate for assigning keyboard shortcuts that actually make sense when you think about like the keys that you're clicking. So I mean, why do you think I have the word V? It's because voice, right? And then H is obviously history. So like, I always love to assign keyboard shortcuts based on that, and honestly, it helps you remember them in the week that it takes for your brain to adjust so that you just automatically do it from that point onwards, and it's huge for the program. It's really just about that first week, just getting you through that first week, how you set up these keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so that's the Raycast setup. Would highly recommend Raycast if you don't already have it installed. All right. If you're interested in any other softwares that I use, pop into the Bootstrap system and you should see a probably mostly up-to-date list. I'm sure there are things missing from here, but nevertheless. All right, moving on to skills. So this is another piece that you could reuse. Now, there are plenty of skills that I leverage in Claude. Actually, I guess they're mostly in Claude. I haven't copied a lot of them over to Codex because Codex, I honestly purely just use it for AI development, and that's about it. So there are two locations that skills could be useful to you. They're not even in this repo. Oh my gosh, they're actually they're in the Brain public repo, but they're not in the Brain repo itself because it's part of the export script that I have. They're actually copied over from the .ai folder. This .ai folder is because I have a script that runs and copies the skills into .claude and .codex so they can be reused across both. Anyways, A bunch of these skills could be useful for you. But then again, these were created very, very early days when skills like just came out as a concept. And now a lot of these are being replaced by like really heavy frameworks like the Get Shit Done framework, Superpowers framework, and a bunch of like skills and plugins and all that jazz. So some might be useful, some might not be. I still use some of them because I think that they're actually a little bit more lightweight and better than some of the other shit that's out there. But nevertheless, they're there if you want them, and customize them to your desire. The commit skill actually is something that I do find pretty solid. It's just because of the way that it's written. It basically looks into linear, finds a relevant issue, and then suggests if you want to link it to the linear task, and then it comments in linear and links it to your commit. It changes the linear task status, and then it assigns it to you if it's not assigned, blah, 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 blah. So there's some cool stuff that's in here, but I don't know how useful it would be for your code base specifically. Aside from that, I do think that there are plenty of things in my Claude skills that would be useful. So let's pop into Claude. I'll just quickly talk about anything notable on that front. Skills. So I copied over a bunch of things that are actually embedded within the OpenClaw skill setup by default. So, you know, navigating Apple Notes, reminders. What else? I don't know. I'm sure there are other things in here, but yeah. So there's that. Generate or edit image. So this is a good one. Basically, just like it gives Claude. I mean, of course, there's an additional cost here because we have the Gemini API key involved. But it does give Claude the ability to generate images, and that's especially important because I have Claude embedded with as an agent that's actually like talking in a bunch of chats and like iMessage chats, like for fun, and it's really fun to just be able to generate images and stuff like that. So the generate edit image is kind of a solid skill that could be reused. I'm sure there's other things out there, but it's lightweight, it works, and yeah, it does pretty well. Okay, so the GOG skill. So the GOG skill, now, this ultimately, there is an official GOG skill, I believe, and this one is... The reason that this exists is because, by default, the Claude desktop, and just the way the Claude works, is bound to add to clear... Yeah, sure, go for it. My recommendation, don't add it. Sure. Anyways, so the reason that this exists is because Claude by default only actually allows you to add a connector for a single account, whether it be Gmail, Drive, Fathom, anything. It's all bound to a single account. So I started and it pisses me off because I have work stuff and then I have personal stuff, and I might want it to create draft emails for personal stuff versus work stuff versus other things, and maybe access multiple accounts. There are other scenarios where I maybe want to log into one of my team's things and access their stuff as well. So anyways, I would highly recommend GOG if you don't already have it. Oh, in addition to that, even beyond the fact you can't do multi-account, another limitation is that you can't draft emails in the exact Gmail thread that already exists using the default Claude connector MCP. So that's a real dumb limitation in my head. So if I'm going to be using Claude to draft emails, I want it to be in the thread. So my draft email actually skill is what it does is it effectively looks through all my meeting notes. It looks through all my history of emails with this person. It looks through understands my voice, and it does a bunch of stuff, and then it creates the thread, and it's super helpful. And I can do this across my personal or my personal or my work Gmail. Okay. What else? Okay, so we're walking through some things that might be helpful for people. I don't know. I have Marvin control my music throughout my entire home. I use Sonos and I use Apple, so it's a very unique combo. So I needed to create. I mean, it's actually in the CLI. I have a bunch of custom music commands that I had to create because of just Apple doesn't play very well with the world, so I had to work around a lot of that stuff. And at this point, I can literally text Marvin. Marvin is the bot that I have running 24/7 on a BlueBubbles, responding to BlueBubbles messages from my personal. I can text Marvin to do anything. I can anything that Claude can do, Marvin can do. And part of what Claude can do is control my sound throughout my home. So I can and it has this system where it tracks, it understands like what my preferences are. It tracks like how frequent it's playing certain things, so it doesn't replay things over time, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pretty cool setup, but I'm just pumping my own tires at this point. I feel like it's not very useful to the rest of the world. A very unique setup here. Yeah, okay. Sync fathom, understand it. Okay, yeah, this is all just stuff that honestly I don't know if that would be helpful for you. All right, vault. So the vault, there's really nothing else to it. I mean, it's simply put, it's really just what it comes down to is it's a markdown, lightweight markdown based Obsidian vault. It's just a mind map. So it relies very heavily on cross-linking between files. And the reason that this exists is so that when I iMessage Marvin, I can just brain dump a bunch of things and it'll just organize it into this vault. But the craziest part about this is that actually I have a video processing pipeline that processes my streams every single night, which can be up to 10 hours, and it'll extract a bunch of things from the streams and actually classify it into my vault as well. Some of it, I have to do some quality related maintenance there, and I've been putting it off for a while, but it's kind of cool. Like I literally have I'm growing my brain. I'm growing like a documented version of my brain, which is, I don't know, it's interesting to me. That's about it. The way that I'm thinking, etc. And another part of that pipeline, actually, that I think is kind of neat is this fillers timeline. You can see how often or how much I use the word like. It's quite impressive. So I use the word like 18 times for every 1,000 words, which is wild. Okay, moving on. So the vault. Okay, so the launch D channels and subagents. So this is where I talk about the Claude limitations and how I overcame them to ultimately get closer to OpenClaw. It's honestly identical, I would say, to OpenClaw. Well, okay, it doesn't have multimodal support yet, but as I think I mentioned earlier in the video, you can work around that using skills. As you can see, I have a skill here that generates or edits images with Gemini. I haven't done it yet, but I've been meaning to actually create a skill to actually just leverage the one-shot Codex messages, because it could totally send one-shot CLI Codex messages, and there you could leverage Codex for just not back and forth communication, of course, but still kind of cool. So you could do that, but that's the only thing that's really missing, the multimodal part. Everything else, I'd say it's pretty much there. Especially if you have to enable team, the team option. I think it's in settings.json. Yeah, Claude experimental agent teams would highly recommend this as well. Okay, moving on to how this is set up. So now there's two problems that I mentioned. The first problem is BlueBubbles. So I do have a custom. Oh, you know what? No, I'm gonna spend. These are too complex to get into. I'm gonna very briefly touch on them here, but these deserve their own video. So I have two custom servers running, MCP servers running on my computer 24/7. I have a BlueBubble server, an MCP server, and you can subscribe to that MCP server in different ways for different channels, and then bind them to specific agents. And then I have a scheduler, which actually has a jobs.json that looks very, very similar to OpenClaw. The reason this exists is because it doesn't exist for the Claude CLI by default, so I just recreated it. And this is an MCP server, this is the MCP server, and then this is the launchd, like the daemon that actually runs on my computer 24/7. And what this allows the system to do is basically I can now schedule jobs whenever, and then I have a single Claude session that actually listens to those jobs 24/7 and will run it locally. So there's two types of jobs. There's either the spawn delivery job, meaning that it's just a one-shot that will spawn a one-shot CLI session, and then it'll just do the job itself. I don't have any job tracking yet, or I do have runs, I guess, but I actually didn't even think about, clearly there's like, okay, no, just tick. Oh, these are just ticks. Yeah. Okay, this is different. Anyways, okay. So I have the run. I don't have much documentation there yet. But anyways, there's spawns, but then there's notify. And notify is where I actually have a channel configured, like a session that's running on my computer 24/7 that actually listens to those messages. or whatever messages that it specifically subscribes to. So I actually have, if we go into my Claude.json somewhere, Claude desktop, no, that doesn't work. No, not here. This one? Yeah. BlueBubbles. Yeah. So you can see here that I actually, I mean, you can see already that you can see how I've kind of scoped out specific servers to specific BlueBubbles, I guess, conversations. And then you can also see this here where I have two schedulers. I have one that excludes this proactive, that basically it excludes tags, and then some others that includes tags. And then what I have is I have a Claude session that is spun up via a system alias here, and you can see basically every single time I turn off or on my computer, I just run. What I do is I literally just run this in 4 different terminals, and I just keep them running. They just sit in the background. That's it. And so you can see how I'm using agents here. And the reason I use agents is because agents have memory by default, which is much stronger than the basic Claude memory, which is surprising. But I mean, they have instructions baked into the actual agents document itself. You can see the way that it generates this. And anyways, that's why that exists. And you can control the personality of stuff. So I have like the personality and the function access and all the stuff that is configured for my personal iMessage one is very, very different than the one that's configured for this like jokeful channel that I have with a couple of my friends that are just like playing around with Marvin. And then I have another one for my iMessage group chat with my founders, and they're all configured and they all have their own individual memories as well. Very, very different. And then I have the cron one that just listens to my cron sessions, and you'll notice that this actually listens to the BlueBubbles Marv sucks, which is like the actual BlueBubbles entry, and then it also listens to the scheduler, which subscribes to very specific events from my jobs. Okay, none of that probably made sense. I'm going to do a deeper dive. I guess that's a wrap for today. Hopefully you have a general better idea of what this all is all about and how it comes together. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. So, peace.